John Draper first said, if you don't like what's being said, change the conversation. And I remember hearing that probably 10 or 15 years ago, whenever Mad Men was on. This isn't even a rerun. This was when it was actually on television. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, is that cool? If you don't like what's being said, change the conversation. And what that meant to me is, if you don't like something that's going on, you have the ability to change it with your words, such as, I'm overwhelmed, I'm too busy, I work in a male-dominated industry. Whatever that is causing you to be triggered or that's causing you anxiety and stress, you can change the conversation and it will change your life. And today we're going to talk about how words matter, Podsters. And over here at Unmute Yourself, we believe very, very strongly in the power of words, particularly when we are speaking with ourselves. So I am just back from a keynote speech followed by a workshop after that same day. And the topic of the keynote speech was change the conversation, change your life. This started as they wanted me to come and talk to them about how to thrive in a male-dominated industry. This was the exact request. And this is the third time I've worked with this group. I love this group. They're the best. And I really, really had a personal commitment to making sure that this session was epic. So I got the call and they said, can you come and can you talk about how to thrive in a male-dominated industry? And their industry is underrepresented by women. So I said, I will absolutely come and do that on one condition, that you stop using the phrase male-dominated. So when you think about it, think about the phrase male-dominated. Why would you, as a woman, give away your power and use words like male-dominated? The industry, is it more men than women? Yes. Is it predominantly male? Yes. Is it dominated by men, or are there more men than women? So this is just one example of how we choose to frame things and how we choose to speak. So what we're going to do in today's podcast, we're going to talk about your words, your thoughts, and behaviors, and how when you change the conversation, it will change your life. I'm going to start with a little quote. I don't know how many of you watched Mad Men, but I did religiously. I actually didn't finish it, which is shocking to me, but it started getting a little weird. So John Draper, who is the main character, I remember there was a scene where he said, if you don't like what's being said, change the conversation. And so this was a long time ago, probably 10 years ago. And that stuck with me because I'm like, wow. And he worked for an advertising agency. He was the creative director, I think. And I thought that was genius. If you don't like what's being said, you can leave the room. You can go off in a huff. You can stop your feet. You can be argumentative, or you can simply change the conversation. So think about that as it relates to us and how we speak to ourselves. Think about that and how it relates to us at work. So I'm going to focus on women here. This applies to men as well. How many times have you said, I'm going to ask for a raise? Are you going to ask for a raise, or are you going to negotiate your salary? There's a very big difference. When you are asking for a raise, you have no power. You're asking. When you're negotiating your salary, you have the power. You are going in to negotiate. It's very nuanced and it's almost like hidden. But again, if you can change that phrase, you're not going to ask for a raise, you're going to negotiate a raise. When you're making a suggestion, do you say, maybe we should consider, or do you say, I have an idea I'd like to explore? Big difference. When you start, do you say, I'm not the expert here, or do you say, I have a suggestion and I'd like your input? That's saying the same thing. It's saying the same thing. So I get the self-deprecation sometimes is appropriate. I would argue it's probably not really appropriate as often as everybody thinks. So the undermining phrases, I'm not the expert here, but somebody's probably already thought of this. I'm not sure this is relevant. I'm just saying, I'm just thinking. You are losing your power. So instead, and if you've read the book, you've heard this. If you follow me on the socials, which by the way, I'm on TikTok now. So if you haven't followed me on TikTok, it's Nancy _Medoff. And I have super cool content there, very different content than what I have on Instagram. So anyway, you've seen me use these word phrases and word switches and how you can power up your vocabulary and really change the conversation. So that's if you're at work speaking to someone else. And now I want to talk about how you're speaking to yourself. I heard a suggestion a long time ago, and this was about women and self-worth. And the suggestion was, speak to yourself the way you would speak to your young daughter. I don't have a young daughter. And at the time I had young nieces, and now I have a young granddaughter. So when I start beating myself up, I say to myself, would you say to your nieces, you can't go out in those pants, you look awful? No, I would probably say, hey, maybe you should try on a different pair of pants. Or would you say to your granddaughter, you know what, that's a really bold idea and pretty sure you're going to fail and people are going to laugh at you. You wouldn't say that to your child. You wouldn't say that to any child. So why do we use those words? Why are we so hard on ourselves? So the suggestion is that words matter, particularly when you're talking to yourself. And I've been doing this a lot lately in my personal life. So in my personal life, I've been really cognizant and really thoughtful and specific about how I speak to myself. So I'm sure you have used the expression, I'm slammed. And I used to say that all the time. I'm slammed this week. I'm slammed. That gives me anxiety, even reading that or saying that. I'm slammed. Okay, calm down, right? Are you slammed, or it's a pretty busy time right now, so I'm not sure I can take that on? Or this is a very busy season. It's temporary. I'm gonna do what I can, and then I know that I'm gonna get some rest on the other side of it. However, you can change that from I'm slammed to something a little less jarring and a little less aggressive. This one, which I've been doing a lot lately, and I've been talking about a lot lately, are you overwhelmed or are you overextended? There's a very big difference. I'm overwhelmed as a feeling. I'm overwhelmed, to me, leaves me feeling powerless. I'm overwhelmed, to me, is like, I can't handle this. Whereas, and it's a feeling, whereas I'm overextended, that's a fact. There's too much on my plate. I will not or cannot manage all of it. So how are we going to fix that? And that's if you're talking to yourself, it's if you're talking to your partner, if you're talking to your boss. So I will oftentimes say to my husband, I'm overextended. When I would say I'm overwhelmed, he would say, how can I help? When I say I'm overextended, he says, okay, great. How about if I take this off your plate? It's a very big difference, and it works. You say to your boss, let's think about if you're going to your boss and you say, I'm overwhelmed. If you come to me, I'm your boss, and you say you're overwhelmed, the first thing I'm going to think is, she can't handle what's on her plate. Not that she has too much on her plate, that she can't handle what's on her plate. Whereas if you come to me and you say, I'm overextended, that's a fact. And I'm going to say, oh, okay, she's overextended. Something's not working. We need to take something off her plate. So I suggest that perhaps you try that. The last one I want to talk about is, and I used to say this all the time, I just need to make it through this week. I just need to make it through the holidays. I just need to make it through December. I just need to make it through first quarter. And I use this very example at this keynote that I delivered last week. In every single woman in the audience and the men, they were nodding. I know you've said it. Instead of I need to make it through here, why don't we think about it as, it's a busy time. I'll have more free time next week. I'm not going to take that on this week. I'm going to take it on when I have a little more free time. Or however you want to phrase it. I need to make it through. Like, who wants to go through life with the outlook, I need to make it through? Because it's always going to be busy, and there's always going to be sports, and there's always going to be, I just need to make it through. I don't want to live my life making it through my life. I want to live my life managing my life. So that's some phrases that really help me. You know that I feel very strongly about boundaries, and particularly boundaries with myself, or boundaries for my time and my energy. I have a finite amount of energy, and I will protect it at all costs. Here are a few phrases that work for me that I think will work for you. So let's say it's the holidays. Those are coming up, and everybody wants dinner around the holidays. Everybody wants dinner or cocktails or holiday parties or whatever the case may be. And it's a really busy time of year, especially if you have children and a family or you're traveling. It's busy. So how about if you're being asked to a 3-hour dinner or a 3-hour party that you really simply don't want to go to, or you would if it was a different time, you don't want to allocate the time right now. You can say something as simple as, it's such a busy time right now. How about coffee instead? Or, you know what? I've been eating and drinking a lot lately. Can we go for a walk instead? I just did that with someone, and someone just did that with me too. And I'm like, you know what? I'm so glad you said that. Yes, let's do that instead. Or if you're incredibly busy, it's the end of the year, or you're focused on a launch, or you're building a new team, or whatever the case may be, instead of I'm slammed, or instead of I'm just too busy at work, how about my work is a priority right now? Can we revisit this in January? Or my work is a priority right now. Can we talk about this in a few weeks when things slow down? You're stating facts, and I guarantee you it'll work for the other person. Here's one that I like because I used it on a friend, and it took her a while, but it ended up being great for both of us. So I have a friend who makes plans very, very last minute. I do not. That doesn't mean that I won't make plans last minute. It means that I have a lot going on in my life. I have priorities, and one of my priorities is to manage my free time. So that means that usually I make plans at least a week out. So I have a friend who constantly would call me, and I love her and I love spending time with her. And she would call me and say, what are you doing tomorrow? Can you meet for a drink? Or what are you doing Friday? Can you meet for lunch? And I would love to be able to say, sure, absolutely. I don't, and I can't, because I work full time and I run my business, and I can drop everything and go meet for lunch, or, meet at 3:00 for a Pilates class or whatever. So, it was started as me getting frustrated and resenting that she would expect me to be able to drop everything. This is what I was thinking in my head. And what I said to her finally was, it's really hard for me to make plans without advance notice. How about if we look at a date a little further out? And her response really surprised me. She said, it's really hard for me to make plans far out. So I guess we'll just have to figure it out. And that was a revelation for me. She wasn't last minute. She wasn't unorganized. Her priority is her children, and her priority is managing her household. So if her children come first, she needs to make sure she's available for the kids. And then she fills in that time with friends. That makes total sense. That's not my life. That's not how I live my life. I'm the opposite. I don't have children. I plan things out. Last minute doesn't work for me. So we agreed that we'll figure it out. We're going to figure it out. No one's mad at anybody. Let's figure it out. About a month later, she texted me and said, hey, how about we pick a Sunday in a couple weeks and we go do this thing that we both wanted to do? And you know what? It worked out great. Not because I won, but because she realized I just can't do it short time. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I just can't. I realized she really can't plan that far ahead. And so let's kind of meet in the middle. And that was really helpful for us. Okay. So that's words. I want to talk a little bit briefly about our thoughts and how our thoughts impact our lives, and how our thoughts impact how we live. What you think about what you say is as important as what you say. So this is the idea of possibility, and I'm going to tie it back to confirmation bias. So when you think as if it already is, so we all have bias. If you have a brain, you have bias. Bias is not good and it's not bad. Bias simply is. It's when it's a negative bias that it becomes a problem. We're not going to talk about that on this episode. We can talk about it on a future episode, though. Confirmation bias is simple. Confirmation bias means that you will find facts, data, people, situations to support whatever your thought is. So when you think, there's no way I can start my own business, I'm not organized enough, I don't have the time, and it's just never going to happen, you will subconsciously find facts to support that. Like, see, I can't even make plans with a friend. How am I going to be able to start my own business? Or see, I have Post-it notes everywhere. People who run their business don't have Post-it notes everywhere, which, side note, we do. You'll find other people. You will gravitate towards other people who have those same limiting beliefs. Flip that around. If you think as if it already is, let's say I'm a global keynote speaker who travels the world empowering women to speak up. And in my spare time, I spend on the beach with my husband and my grandchildren while also living a healthy, thriving lifestyle, right? This is thinking in my head. So if I think this, and I'm not saying I manifest it, we all know how I feel about the word manifest. If I act and think as if it already is, it will become. I will find people to support this vision. I will find a partner, a spouse who supports this vision. I will find a business partner who supports this vision. I will find other speakers. I will find other empowerment advocates. I will find people to whom wellness and a healthy lifestyle is important. These are the people that I will find. I will find facts and data to support this. I will find facts on how much does a public speaker make? I could make that kind of money. How often do they have to travel? What kind of groups do they speak to? So if you think as if it already is, it will be. I have the proof. I am the proof. I have the proof. And I think if you try it, you will find the same thing. So that's thoughts. Let's talk about your behaviors. And I'm gonna be a little vulnerable here. I was called a cookie Karen on YouTube. And it was because I suggested behaviors for women who want to be taken seriously and rise up in the ranks at work. And what I said was that if you want to be taken seriously, don't bring cookies into the office. Now, you can bring them into the office if the men in your office are bringing cookies into the office. And my point was that when we show up as the caretaker at work, that's a beautiful, lovely way to be if that is how you want to be perceived. And if you don't care about rising in the corporate ranks. And or if men are bringing in cookies, if men are making the arrangements for the coffee, if men are scheduling the meeting and checking the calendars, that's all okay if it's equal. And also, if it's not equal and you are the one always doing this, you are setting yourself up as the caretaker. So that's just a really quick example of your behaviors and the way you speak, how you speak. Another example is when you're sitting at the table at this meeting, are you taking up space? And you've heard me talk about the Amy Cuddy TED Talk, where she talks about taking up space. It works. I guarantee you it works. I tried it. It works. Are you taking up space? Are you shrinking in your chair? Are you sitting towards the back of the room? I can tell you right now, the people that attend my training sessions and the people that attend my workshops, I can tell who is going to get the most out of the session. I can tell who's going to contribute the most out of the session. And I can tell who is a leader or on their way to being a leader by the way they enter the room. 100%. So your thoughts, your behavior, and your words absolutely matter when it comes to how you want to curate your life. I want to do one more change your words, because I do this a lot with a lot of my friends. So if you are saying, I can't afford it right now, or I don't have the time right now, if these are two things you're saying, I would suggest that instead you say it's not a priority right now. Because if it were a priority, you would find a way to do it. I'm not talking about buying a Lamborghini. I'm not talking about buying a home when you truly don't have the money right now. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, let's say it's investing in a coach. It's a great example. You will find the money if it's a priority. You will take out a small business loan. You will charge on your credit card. You will charge a little more for whatever it is you're doing. You will save the money. If it is a priority, you will find a way. The same thing with your time. And this really, really resonates for me, because when I say I don't have time to do something, do I really not have the time, or is it not a priority? And it's also when someone else is asking me to do something. When I say I don't have time to do it, I'm selling myself short, and I'm not respecting them and their wishes. When I say, this isn't a priority for me right now, if you need me to make it a priority, let's talk about it. That's a very different conversation. So these are a few examples that I encourage you to try. I would love to hear how it goes. There's nothing I love more than when somebody says, hey, I just listened to your podcast. I love this. And I was listening to your podcast when I was doing my laundry. By the way, no shade, no shame in that. I love that you listen to my podcast when you're cleaning. I love that you listen to my podcast when you're taking your walk. So if you have any suggestions on what you tried that has worked that you want to share with the community, tell me. Hit me up on social media. Send me a text. I'm Nancy_Medoff on Instagram. I'm all over LinkedIn. I'm on the TikTok. Let me know, because I would love to be able to continue to share it with the community. So my podsters, my challenge for you this week is pick a phrase that you know that you say that you know is not serving you, and see if you can change it, and then watch how it changes your life. That's it for now. I'll be back next week with an awesome special guest. And until then, peace out.